Alright, so today's video is going to be on these cute little advent stockings. So they can fit some kind of a candy like this, which is what I have on hand. I will eventually be filling them with chocolate because if I don't, my kids will be horrified. So you can see you can fit a few of these in there. And I do plan on hanging them, and I'm going to make a little calendar with them. So, but you get all the numbers and you get them up until actually 31 for those that want to make the entire month. And they are unlined. So these are made of cotton material. They are unlined and they do have a raw edge on the inside of them, which I have used pinking shears with. And then I have used a felt material as the applique, and then a ribbon there. Alright, so this is today's video and let's get started. So for this project you will need 2 pieces of material, one for the front of the stocking and one for the back of the stocking. And on the material, because it's not a lined stocking, it's best to put a type of stabilizer on the back to prevent the fraying. So this is an SF101 that I have on my front and my back pieces. And then you will need a little piece of ribbon. This is also optional if you don't want the ribbon and you want to put little clothespins. But I have the ribbon step in there, and I use a 3.5 inch piece of ribbon. To get it ready, I fold it in half, and then I burn the edges just to stop them from fraying. As well, that actually helps keep it together in a little loop. So this is what we need for this. And to make a template for the stocking, you can either use the one that comes with it in a PDF format, and you can cut it out and then you can place it on, trace it around and cut out your stocking. You need one on the front, and then you need one that is reversed for the back so that you have your front and your backs together. So you can put them together and cut it out like that. What I like to do is I also included with the pattern is a embroidery file that you can use, and you'll just stitch it on. So what you need for that one is you need a piece of material, and you put it face down onto the stabilizer, and then you put the next material face up onto the stabilizer, and I pin it in place. And then you go ahead, well, pin it if you know that your pins are not going to hit the machine or the needle. And then you go ahead and you run that, what looks like a placement stitch, but it is just going to be an outline of the stocking, and then you cut that piece out. I will be right back. So the stocking has been run, and you can just see that it's hard to see on the back there because it's white, but it's just an outline. And so what we do with that is take it out, and you would just cut it out like any other item. Alright, so the best thing to do for this is to actually, you need 2 separate pieces. So you need to cut it out on the actual stitching so that you'll separate the 2. So now, because we cut it out on the stitching, we have 2 separate pieces. And then what we need to do with that is we need to prepare it for the top, because this is an unlined stocking. There is no stitching that is going to hold down the top. So what I do is you could either use a fabric glue, or you could stitch it, I guess, if you really would like to. But what I have found the easiest is I like to use pieces of iron-on fusible web. And what you need to do is you need to measure. So you need a 1/2 inch fold at the top for these. So what I do is I measure 1 inch down. Make a mark. And then fold. Oh, where'd my piece go? And then you put your little fusible piece or your glue or whatever it is you want to use, and you put it in there, and you fold it over, making sure it's lined up just to the mark so that you get that 1/2 inch, and iron that down. And this will basically, the fusing will basically glue it in place. So like I said, you can either use a glue, or you could use the iron-on, or you could probably stitch across as well. So this is what you need your piece to look like. So that's the back piece. And then this would be the front piece. So this is what we need to start with. Now you could also use a piece of rectangle material that would be the same size as this, or just a little bit bigger, and then you don't have to measure it out exactly into this size. It's just, this is a lot easier in a multi-hoop if you're going to do it that way. As well, if you're going to use the rectangle, you still need to fold it down the 1/2 inch at the top. So that's what we need to move on to the next steps. And now we need to go run our placement stitch on the next hoop. So I have run the placement stitch, and the next thing that we need to do is we need to attach the front stocking of the hoop, so the one this way, and it goes right side face up, and it goes in between there. Now what you need to make sure to do is you need to make sure that the top side of the fold is just slightly below this line up here. This way you can ensure that all the stitching is going to catch. And I like to give it a little piece of tape in the center here, because I know it's not going to stitch there. And then you just kind of simply line it up here and there, and put a tiny little piece of tape on the bottom. I don't spray adhesive this because it's hard to get off the stabilizer since there's no lining. And then after attaching that, so let me just show you the top here. See, it's just a little bit below that line, and that's what you want. So then we need to take it back and we need to run the tack down stitch. So now that the outline stitch is done, I am going to go ahead and run the placement stitching for the circle. Stitch is done. And the next thing that needs to be done is we need to take the piece of applique material and put it over, and then run the tack down stitches for that. So the triple bean stitching has been done, and the next thing that we have to do is cut off the excess around the circle, and you can cut close. So the next thing that has to be done is we need to go run the color for the number, and when you're running numbers or letters or words or anything, when you're running fonts, it is really a good idea to match the bobbin thread to the thread that you're using for the font. It just helps make it a better looking stitch. So I will go change the bobbin and I will go run that. So there's the front, there's the back of it. The next thing that needs to be run is going to be the placement stitch for the ribbon. Now that the placement stitch has been done for the ribbon, we need to add the ribbon with the loop portion facing out and the cut ends facing in. I find it easiest to use a piece of double-sided sewing tape, and it's called Wonder Tape. So you just put the piece of tape on and then you peel off the double-sided backing paper piece. And the most important thing for this one is to make sure that you get the ribbon, which is a 1/4 inch wide ribbon that I use. You can also use less, but I wouldn't use more. And then you get it placed in there with the bottom piece just covering, so that the stitches that are going to tack it down are holding everything in place properly. Put a little piece of tape and then go run the tack down stitches. So I went and I ran those tack down stitches, and as you can see, they hold a 1/4 inch ribbon in place nicely. And I do like to run them in a embroidery thread that is going to match, because you will kind of see it on the inside. So you don't really want to see a very ugly thread hanging on the end there. So the next thing to do is actually the last bit, and we are going to be adding the other piece of the stocking, the back stocking. And what you need to do for this is you need to take the stocking with the right side face down and match it up to the top of the stocking piece. You need to line the two edges up perfectly. And then you tape those down into place. So if you're using the rectangle pieces, you just want to make sure that your two edges are definitely flush and lined up. And then put a piece down here to hold it in place. I'm going to put a piece over here. And then we need to take it back to the machine, and we need to finish off, and we need to run the stitch, the tack down stitch that's going to keep the two of these together. So the stocking's done. That's the front, that's the back. Oh, my little tape's still on there. And now we can cut out the stocking, or tear off the tearaway first and then cut out the stocking. So you will see, once you're done taking off the stabilizer, the tear-off stabilizer on the edges, and I would also take it off in the center, that you're left with a little bit of stabilizer in the seam allowance. That's okay, because we're going to be cutting along this first tack down edge, and that is going to release the stabilizer that's in here. So what I do first is I actually make sure that the stabilizer is off the top piece here. And then, because the ribbon is only on 1/2 of the seam, I actually do fold that over and give the other seam a little bit of a clip. I like to keep it close. And then I flip it over a little bit, and I give this little part at the top. So I left a little bit of an edge at the top here so that you can cut that just a little bit. You want to keep all the ribbon intact though, so don't cut the ribbon. And don't cut the ribbon stitching. Alright, so that's done. And then I go in and I use my pinking shears And I think it's best when you're using something that is not going to have a lining and you're going to have raw edges, to make sure that you have the least amount of fraying in there as possible. So you just cut along the edge of the tack down. And you can see that that releases the inside piece and it just peels off. So one other thing that you need to do before turning this is you really should clip the edges around the little curves, because it makes it lay a lot flatter. Alright, so you can see the little clippings are all done. And now I'm going to turn it the right way around and then press it into place. So the way I turn it is I use a chopstick and I push it to the end, and then I push this little bit of the toe in and then use the chopstick and push that through. Be gentle with the top piece. Then you just use your chopstick and you round the edges on the inside. You round there. Make sure you go all along. Get all the edges pushed out. Give it a little bit of a press. And your sweet little stocking for the Advent is done. Okay. And that would be the inside top, and that is the back. So I hope you do give this a shot, make a beautiful Advent calendar. Thank you for watching.